Some he has given us in his word we call the Torah. Others we have discovered as we seek for his truth throughout the universe called the law of physics. Now we're discovering a system in the temple, the body, that works along with everything else that Yah created, and I call it the Aleph Tav body system. So it's made up of 26 points with some variations, which basically means if there's an Aleph point, sometimes the Aleph point has more than one location, but it's still Aleph. Each point has a number which is related to its operating frequency, which correlates to the Hebrew numbers. There are also 12 pathways in the body that carry an information. There are 3 governing pathways that supervise all the information in circulation. There's a 2 and 1 pathway, which is one pathway that divides into 2 and comes back together as 1, which is literally called the breath of light and the breath of life. We'll get into the names here in a little bit, how you can figure that out. They begin all energy circulation and it holds the body together. Everything in this system can be divided into 7 cycles, which are like families of frequencies or levels of manifestation. They're hard to explain. The 7 cycles are like structural organization categories. So each cycle governs everything in the body that's related to a family of frequencies. So everything in the body can be divided into one of the 7 cycles. The points have both ascending and descending points. There's both ascending and descending pathways. All of this you're going to see is completely Hebrew. And I think the primary pathway with 2 and 1 is very interesting, considering we're on the 49th day and tomorrow's the 50th day. Because if anyone was here last year, I gave a teaching at Jim's about Shavuot. And the 2 and 1 principle in Scripture is everywhere, I'm starting to see. And Shavuot is a great example. Because you have like 2 feasts, but really just 1 feast. And a lot of people count it wrong. And you see the principle everywhere. He created Adam. Out of Adam he created Eve, and he brings them back together as 1. 2 come together to form 1 child. You see it over and over and over again. I think we see it with the Hebrew now. When we have all these arguments, right? Which one's right? Chaldean or Paleo? But if Daniel really created this language and Yah told him to, I think there was one language, he split it into 2 and he's bringing it back together and he hid some things here and he hid some things here, and when you put them back together you get the full meaning of the letter. I don't know if Eric agrees, but I have a feeling he thinks he does.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
So instead of arguing about this, it's perspective. You know, everyone's seen these charts. The most common one is the old woman, the young woman. And they're both there, but depending on which one you see, depends on perspective.
Do you know that there is a Hebraic chakra system that includes the feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you don't have to go to the Hebrew system, it still exists within the, you don't have to go to the Hindu, yeah. It exists within the
Yes.
Hebrew system.
The chakras, especially the 7 main chakras, are an emanation of the 7 cycles. It's just, these people take these things and make these crazy concepts about them. We'll get there. Maybe here. Okay, so, long explanation. We're talking about Shem, right? Names. N-I-C-E. Any name in Hebrew is going to have a numerical value, or you could say an electromagnetic frequency. There are many ways to communicate with the body, and we've been doing it for years. One is like biofeedback. It's a way to send information to the body and receive a response back. Muscle testing is another one. And you've seen that probably where someone puts their arm out and they test, and then you hold something and it stays strong. You hold something bad, you go weak. That's the same thing as a polygraph test. A polygraph test is testing negative and positive responses from the body subconscious mind. So a muscle test works the same way. You put something in the hand and you make a statement. This is good for you. If the body makes a false statement, or if you lie, it sends a negative signal throughout your body that weakens you. That's what they measure in a polygraph test. If you tell the truth, it sends a positive signal throughout the body and your body stays strong. So muscle testing is the same thing as a lie detector test. You're just physically pushing on the arm, and when it goes weak, that is false or bad for the body. It shuts the energy system down, you go weak. So lies weaken you, truth strengthens you. No surprise there. Biofeedback is the same thing. It's just much, much faster. So it's sending out electromagnetic stimuli to your body and then receiving a response back. Is it good? Is it bad? Does that frequency exist in the body? If the frequency is in the body, how much? And that's how we get information. So what I figured out is this is an ancient system. The Japanese, someone called Yaro Mariah, interesting last name, rediscovered it, supposedly on top of a mountain, although that's the story they have in all the Japanese writings and any art. Someone goes up into a mountain and then they discover something, they come back down. And he said that God spoke to him, whatever, and he started applying these different things, and then he started going into the writings, and he worked with an emperor's son. He got access to the emperor's shrine in Japan. He got all these documents, he started studying it, and he made a very interesting observation. He said that as far as he could tell, it went back to Moses. A Japanese man mentioning Moses? What? And he said it was very Hebraic. But he didn't really go any further than that in the Hebrew. That was called Jinsen Jitsu. Jinsen Jitsu came to America. Dr. King got a hold of it. He renamed it the King Institute Method, or TKM. He took out a lot of their mysticism. He got the original documents, which I have seen and studied, from Japan. And I would love to get my hands on those again now, because I would be very interested to see if I could actually read them much better now that I know the Hebrew. Because I have found that the Japanese language is very closely related to the Hebrew. In fact, I forget how many words they have now found that are pronounced exactly like Hebrew and have the same meaning. And it's Japanese. But they're thinking a large portion of Japanese people were actually Hebrew. So I think it was a system that got lost, and he rediscovered it. Interesting enough, 2009, I went to a conference across the street from where I was living in Texas. I was at the King Institute studying, because I've been studying this probably since 2004. And it was called The Final Return. I thought it was about prophecy. Turned out there was all these crazy Messianic Jews. Turned out they weren't Messianic Jews, they were Hebrew roots. So I learned about Torah, and all of a sudden it made sense. I'm not going to get into that whole story. I have it on the DVD if you want to see the documentary, The Way. But eventually, after I could not exhaust it anymore, I was like, okay, Torah's true. I'm going to start living this. So 2009, 2010, light bulb went off my head. I was studying this and I went, these are Hebrew letters. Because what we did know from the King Institute is if you study one of the points, like the one, it has the same meaning of all the meanings of number one in Scripture. And you go, well, that's weird. And all the points are like that. So we knew there was a meaning between what the points do and meaning of numbers in Scripture. And then when the light bulb went on and I realized, oh, they're Hebrew letters. That's why letters are numbers. So to get to the point where we could start measuring these things, one thing I had to do is communicate with the body. And to communicate with the body, what we have found over the years is you have to have the right language or name. So I found this out by Dr. Overman. He specialized in parasites. And what he discovered was tons of people would come to him with parasite problems, and they went to all these other people, and they were told that they didn't have a parasite problem. So he found out that what happened is we were using these man-made labels of these classification of parasites, and the body didn't recognize what people were saying, so they didn't show up. So he had to find out what names the body recognized to identify the different species of parasites. And when he did that, you could muscle test or use biofeedback, and you could find the parasites. So in doing that, and a number of years of experimenting, I realized, yeah, that's true for everything. The body has a design that Yah created, and it understands everything in creation. And that's why all the man-made stuff, the body doesn't recognize because it doesn't have the information to communicate correctly. And if we can identify the right name, you can communicate with the body. So I went out to start finding out what was the name for each point. And then using biofeedback, which is like muscle testing, or what's the other thing I said? Polygraph tests to find out what was true and what was not. Because when you find the correct name for something on the body will give you a true statement or a true response. So the collective name, and once you have the name, then you have the Shem. So you know the nature, the identity, the character, and the essence of that point or that pathway, and then you can figure out their frequencies, you can do all kinds of things. So that's what I've been working on for the last 8-9 years. So collectively, all the points together are what we call life formation messengers. That's according to the body. You have 26 points ascending and descending points. I will show you the Hebrew in a minute. And as you can imagine, there's 22 Hebrew letters. There's 5 final forms, right? Everyone's familiar with that. Which makes 27. Anyone see a problem?
Only 26?
There's only 26 points. What's the last final Hebrew letter?
Zadi.
Zadi. Looks like that in modern form. The normal Zadi. The Sophie Zadi looks something like that. So, I had 2 problems when I was doing this. First, when I got to the number 22, that was great, and then when I got to number 23, I was like, oh no, what do we do? The other problem was once I got to number 11, what do we do? Because in Hebrew, well, I'll come back to that in a minute. Like I said, this gets crazy complicated, and we could be here all day talking about all kinds of things. But in the Hebrew, all the scribes say this is the humble man. Like, this is a guy, if you can imagine his head's right there. He's kneeling. So this is the humble man kneeling with his hands up praying. And this is the righteous resurrected man. I went, oh, we have a point on the body for every Hebrew letter except for the one that are resurrected man.
Oh.
I'm like, I haven't missed anything yet. I think I know that there is a 27th point, and I think I have an idea where it is, or where it's divided among the body, and I believe, this is only what I believe, I can't prove this one way or another, I think it was turned off when Adam and Eve sinned, and when he turns it back on, it will change the physics of our body. That's what I think. But, there it is in the Hebrew. Interesting that these points have the same name as a messenger. Malach. So they're life formation messengers. So in Hebrew you could even write it, read it maybe backwards. Messengers that form life. And isn't it interesting that we have some that are ascending and descending? Kind of like Jacob's ladder. Ascending and descending messengers. So in Hebrew you have what? As far as numbers, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you have a 10. But you don't have an 11. Numerical value. In order we do, what's that called? Something. Cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers.
There you go.
But you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And then if you add the final forms, normally at the top you would end at 400. But if you add the final 5 forms, it goes
5, 6, 7.
to 900, and Aleph can be 1,000. So what I find is in Hebrew you just have these cycles. In mathematics we would call them ones, tens, hundreds, right? How many zeros are at? But the reality is all you have is a cycle of 9, and then you add a 0. Cycle 9, add a 0. At cycle 9, add a 0. So you have these 3 cycles going to 900. The other thing that's interesting is how many people have ever heard of casting out of 9s. Yeah. There's another name for it by the man who developed it, but it's a way of checking mathematical equations. And basically what you do is you take any number and you subtract 9, and you keep subtracting 9 until it's 9 or below. Another way to do it is just add up the numbers. So let's say you had 27, you would add that up, 7, 8, 9. 27 is equal to 9 in mathematical equations. You can do that with any number. So the points are actually in order, so what was interesting is when I got to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, number 9, 10 is the yod, right?
Mm-hmm.
Numerical value is 10. No problem. So that's right here. What happens when you get to the next letter? Well, guess what? Casting out of 9s. 1 plus 1 is 2. What cycle are we on? Second. So you add 0, 20. So 11 and 20 are the same thing. What about number 12? Well, that would be 3. This would be 4. This would be 5. This would be 6. You add the 0. It continues to match up. So that's how I originally figured out the numbers related to the Hebrew letters.
I think another witness to that, I was talking about it yesterday with Eric, about the Jews have this book that's just all about why does Bereshit, why does the first page start with an enlarged bet and not an aleph? And that casting out of 9s, because the 9 is the number for truth, just another witness of what you said. You count 2, 3, 4, and then you have 9, and then you 5, 6, 7, and you add the 5 and the 6, and add the 7, you get, what do you get? You get 18, and you add 1 plus 8, 9, and you keep doing that all the way up, and you always equal 9 in Scripture, and that's why they said he started with Bereshit, with a bet, because it adds up to 9, which is truth. Casting out of 9, you always have 9.
Yep.
I noticed also to reduce to 1 digit. Just an example. I'm born in 1972, and I know this to reduce it to 1 digit. I know right away it's 1 because you remove all the 9 in the number.
Yep.
So if you add up like 9, 2, 7 is 9 plus the like 19, you remove the 9, it gets to 1. But if you add them all, like 1 plus 9, 10, plus 2, 12, plus 7, 18.
Which is a 9.
Which is a 9.
Comes back to 1.
Not 18, hang a second. 9,
Yeah, that would.
9 plus 9, 18 plus 1, 19.
Yes. 19.
And
there you go.
19, 1 plus 9, 10. It makes 1.
Yep.
So by removing the 9s, you come to 1 digit faster.
Exactly. So that's how that lined up. And then eventually I figured out the names and then the frequencies. Now we've been able to test for a number of years now. And we continue to do more. Messenger pathways, like I said, there's 12 of them. There's the name again. They are responsible for carrying all the information from the letter points, which are the telecommunication centers, throughout the body. Interesting enough, there happens to be 4 sets of 3. 3 begin in the chest. Where's my laser? 3 begin in the feet. 3 begin in the hands. 3 begin in the face. What does that make you think of? 12 tribes. 3 on the 4 corners. Very interesting. 4 sets of 3. These are actually the names in English. I have the Hebrew too. But arm and bowel messenger pathway, breath messenger pathway, mouth and consumption messenger pathway, immune vitality messenger pathway. These are the names. Where they begin, if they're ascending or descending energy, it's not AC/DC as in direct or alternating current. AC means ascending, DC means descending, and then the cycles are called cycles of life formation. CFM. I think that might not be correct. Cycles of life formation. I think I typed that wrong. But anyways, that would be the cycles they work in. Like I said, everything has 7 cycles, which we're going to get to. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to say. Cycles of life manifestation. So maybe that was right. What did I have there? No, see, that's supposed to be an L.
CLM, yeah.
Oh, mental note. Yeah, cycles of life manifestation and what the 7 cycles are called. What I found interesting is the first 5 are really physical. So the points are divided. The first 4 points are in first cycle, then 5 through 15 is in the second cycle. Each cycle has 2 pathways. When you get to the 6th and 7th are spiritual but have a physical effect, also called the breath of life. In fact, it's really fascinating when you break it down, Jinsen Jitsu, which is what the name became out of Japan, what it actually means. I broke it down a lot of different ways. It could literally mean the breath of life way. Interesting, and there's all kinds of different ways you can read it. Yarrow also said that this system was a gift from God to mankind and all his kinds. He said that it was a working with the breath of life. He didn't have really a good name of it. Energy, which moves bodily fluids. That's because I believe it's plasma energy. And then 7th cycle is light that holds the body together. So we could say that's Yeshua. So just to summarize before we want to get to questions and more stuff. So there's 26 life formation messengers. Each point acts as a communication command center. Each one's related to a Hebrew letter and number. Each one has a specific name, which is Shem. There are 12 messenger pathways carrying information or communication throughout the body. They're divided into 7 cycles. Oh, that one's right. Based on level of manifestation and frequency. 5 are physical, meaning they control the physical function and make up the physical body, such as blood, muscles, bone, skin, which is why they can also be called depths. TDM calls them stratums. Whatever. It's kind of a description, but it's Shem. But I saw that 5 seems to be the number of physical man. If you look at physical man, 5 is the number of grace, and you see we have 5 fingers on both hands, 5 toes, we have 5 lumbar, we have 5 sacrum, we have densus. 5 is the number of grace. And then 6th cycle seems to be the number of spiritual man. 6th cycle is the breath of life, and that's the 6th cycle is where the spirit, the soul of the body is. And then 7th cycle is the source, also called the light, which holds everything together. And that's basically how it flows in the body. The first pathway that begins is 7th cycle. It's a light breath pathway. Once that cycles, it creates the breath of life, which creates 6th cycle, which is your spirit soul. And then it feeds into this 5 cycles, and it actually feeds into number 3 first, which is interesting because 3 is the blood level of the body, and then that cycles into the other 5, and it forms physical structures of the body. well, this is really out there. This is ingredients for a proper message in the body. So you need a Hebrew letter name, number, you need the Shem, you need the operating frequency, broadcasting frequency, high and low, the chemical, cell, tissue, and body Torah, which is the instructions. That gets detailed. That's something I'm working on for making things that treat the body. The temple's functions are governed by the temple's communication, which is the light of the body. And the light of the body is sustained by the breath of life. So now you can see the importance of Yeshua and Torah for proper health and wellness, since it's the same thing. This just explains how it's a telecommunication system. These are all these biological pathways. So this kind of shows it as a telecommunication center, whereas the points are the command centers, the pathways are the broadcasting channels, the governing pathways govern everything. The primary pathways are the light and breath, which sustains the body, it's the source. And the cycles are modulators. So from a physics point of view, if you're looking at telecommunication centers, it's set up the same way. I believe, from what I've seen, it controls everything, including the DNA. And I've seen people's DNA change. So each point is a command center which governs all the information for the formation of life, thus the manifestation of the human body from the information level all the way to the physical level. Messenger pathways are very similar to meridians, except they are much deeper and less manifested. From my understanding, they would be considered plasma energy, which is why it can move gases and liquids and solids. So it's basically light that travels through the body through gases and liquids, but it's not completely a gas, it's not completely a solid, it's not completely a liquid. Yeah, this is just more detailed information if we really got into it. But basically, every point in the body works in perfect unison with everything else Yah created. So based on how we live, if we're outside of Torah, it's going to affect points related to that aspect, that you're out. That means that point gets congested, and then thus you're going to have symptoms or health problems in the body. So the blessings and curses are automatically programmed in the fabric of the universe and in the fabric of our body. So if we're violating his words, we're violating the communication systems, which then breaks down the chemical level and the cell level and everything else. So that's why Torah and Yeshua are so important, because it's the word. It's the plumb line. And our bodies work identically according to that. So all we have to do is disobey, and then we're going to have the natural consequences showing up in the body. But since it's complicatedly simple, there's no real way to use this system to say, well, I know what your sin is. It's not that simple. We can't really prove absolutely what command did you disobey that made you have colon cancer. Because the systems are so intertwined, it just affects everything, and wherever the weak link is, that's what goes. So a lot of the weak links come from what we inherit from our families.
Were you eating pork then?
Hmm?
Were you eating pork then?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So oh yeah, really bad night before. You mean with my health problems? Oh yeah. And then, and that's what you're seeing. So we found how unclean animals resonate different. So if you've never heard this before, I think Dr. Oberman actually did some of this research. He found that, I have it here somewhere in all my paperwork, clean animals resonate at a frequency very similar to us, and all the unclean animals do not. And all animals have a lower broadband than humans. So the difference is the frequency aspect would be coherence. The broadband, I'm this? Oh, what am I doing? Band. I'm just gonna call it band. Is how much information? How much info? So what he found is all of the clean, and if you look at humans, let's just say this is our wave frequency. I don't know. We're gonna make up some crazy number for, let's say 9 hertz, since we're on nines. So all the clean animals have 9 hertz. But our broadband might be like 10,000, whereas all the animals only have 2,000. And unclean animals have this weird, like, these aren't true numbers now, I'm just, let's say 5 hertz, and they're like 2,000 band. Which is interesting because it means the clean animals are coherent to the body, but when you're looking at the bandwidth, it took a lot less information to create the animals than humans. So humans are a lot more complex, but they run off of similar frequencies. Whereas the unclean animals, they're still way less complex than humans, but their frequency rate is completely incoherent to us. Yes?
What happens to the energy when it's cooked?
For animals?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure it probably changes.
The only
Mike,
reason I'm asking is, which is why vegetables and fruits are so much better for us.
any information yet on how microwave affects food versus, say, gas heat?
Microwaves completely alter the state of the chemicals. So by the time you're done microwaving something, you no longer have food.
Okay, John disagrees with you. At least if I understand what John said.
And male and female, it's the same for humans, the hertz, and
I think so, yes.
because they always say women are more complicated. So I thought,
Well, that might be bands. They might be 100,000.
men are closer
Yeah, there you
to
go.
animals.
Or a million, who knows? Huh?
Just saying, you know, just a thought.
Hey, Alfonso,
Yes.
I missed you had a list, there was 7, light, and breath of light.
Oh, you want me to go back to that?
Shem, and then what was the,
You're talking about this
yeah, so.
or that?
Yeah, I think that's where you were. But there were 7 cycles, I guess, or,
Yep.
first one was life, or light, excuse me, the first one was light, the second one was breath of life.
Yep.
The third one was physical.
Yeah,
A
all
little differently.
5 cycles, 1 through 5, are physical.
Okay, but maybe it was the next slide after that, when you were talking about this other one.
He starts with 7th is light,
Yeah, 7th is the light, the source.
6 is the
6
breath,
is the spiritual, and then there's 5 that are physical.
And then, but what were the 5? One of them was Shem, that was under the physical.
What are the 5 physical symptoms? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I was just trying to get this list of, there was light, breath of life, and then there was, under the physical, there was 5 other ones, is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Trying to get a sense
There's
of,
5 there, and then the 2 bottom ones.
So these are the 5. So if you were going to break it down in the systems, you would have first would be surface skin. Second would be the deep skin and lymph. Well, this would be lymph. Third would be the blood. Fourth would be muscles. Fifth is like bone.
okay, there was another place, it wasn't exactly.
We can go back, keep backing up.
You're not talking about all the pathways.
No, the other direction.
The other
back.
direction.
After that.
Cycle.
Maybe it's the next one.
Not that one?
No?
That?
Yeah, I thought it was you said something right before that, maybe. Main energy points, no, wasn't that? Energy, was that energy, chemistry? No?
That's a plasma that we didn't get into too much.
It was only a few back from where you ended. I thought you listed 7 things. It started with light, and then breath of life that was / spirit. And then you said physical, and then Shem. And I didn't get the rest.
That's
of
way
it.
back there.
You think that's way back there?
I think so.
Boy.
Or I was writing it on the board maybe.
No, I didn't think it was that far back. No, sorry. But there was a group of 7.
There's a group of 7.
Started with light, and then goes to breath of life, then physical.
Right there.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's gotta be it.
It just says first.
If you
breath
start
of
at the
life,
bottom, you get your light.
physical. No, that,
The first 5 are physical, and then there's 6 and 7 is below that.
yeah, but you were reading the other direction. That's why. I
They
think
started
that's
out at
following.
the beginning, in reverse to that direction. Upper
Oh,
left-hand
light.
corner on the whiteboard.
Oh, maybe that's what you're doing. Maybe you just, number 7 is the light that holds it all together, and then
Yep.
number 6 is spiritual light, and 5 would have been.
All 5 cycles are physical, the first 5 cycles. So first cycle, second cycle, third, fourth, fifth are all physical. But they govern different aspects of the body, which aren't all listed up there.
Well, I guess I was. I
I'm
thought
gonna,
you were on
I'm
a
gonna
different
copy that
thing. I
down.
don't quite recognize them. But anyway, thanks.
So
Just a-
if you want to see some applications, we could get into that, of how you actually apply this to the body, and maybe get into some more examples of how the points are related, or if we want to take a break first, or if we have questions.
Let's take the questions while they're fresh in our mind.
Yes.
Well, if you have a physical ailment like a gallbladder problem,
Yes.
how would you associate that with this?
We would look at, let me just bring up something that. Then you would look at what systems control the physical gallbladder. Most likely, it's a pathway called head and vision messenger pathway. Where's my cursor? Oh, here he is, but he doesn't want to do anything.
Number 7.
Joe, au revoir.
I know so many people that have had them removed, and I just wonder,
Yeah.
is it impossible to heal it?
Oh yeah. A lot of people have them removed because of gallbladder stones,
Yeah, my brother and sister-in-law had them.
but you can dissolve those pretty easily with herbals, like hydrangea. Another thing is, like, this is a pathway they used to call gallbladder energy pathway, so you can see what the pathway looks like in the green, because third cycle is green. So this would actually really be called head and vision messenger pathway, because it goes through the head and it affects your vision, but it goes through your gallbladder.
And the backside there, could that be something with Jim's problem? Could it be with gallbladder?
Oh, on the side of the neck?
No, on the hip down there.
Oh, yes, possibly, because that's where it travels through. That could be the pathway. What's interesting with third is there's 2 pathways in each of these. So if you saw the pathway, the next one would be
You're repressing emotions.
that one.
I can't hear you.
I'm joking with
So what's interesting,
Oh.
this is third cycle, and third cycle
Oh,
controls
okay.
blood. And it's related to the liver and the gallbladder, even though that's not their real names.
Oh.
This would be called blood messenger
Definitely, I
pathway.
am.
And if you look where the pathways go, they're in the big toe, the big thumb, and the earlobe. And it's the cycle that governs blood. So I'm going to ponder about that. If you think
Aaron's anointing?
yeah, they put the blood on the big toe, the thumb, and the earlobe. Interesting. We just happen to have a pathway that goes through all those areas that govern blood. and it's related to liver gallbladder, which is related in that one is the I think the peace offering that they have to do to anoint themselves before they go in and serve in the temple.
Would you say that is reconditioned between midnight and 2 a.m.?
Yeah, so what happens is between midnight and 2 a.m. in the morning, it's doing its maintenance. So like if you built a motor and you wanted to put stress on the motor to see how it was going to run, that's what the body is doing during that time. It's doing maintenance and puts stress on this pathway, and if you start getting symptoms during that time frame, it's a good indication that that pathway is not working.
The repressing.
Because it can't handle the load.
Well, what if you're up talking and stuff?
Oh, 12 a.m. to 2
Well,
a.m.
that doesn't matter. Each pathway has a 2-hour time frame.
Yeah, I got that.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely the fourth one
Yep.
down is a big problem.
So that's like a big
What do you
question
do
for me
about it?
is for people like, do you wake up? Do you wake up every time, every night?
Stop it.
Because that's an indication.
We'll talk about it.
Or seizures. This is a major
It's not
pathway that
something I can do
causes
about it.
seizures.
Being single.
Migraines.
That's huge. Yeah.
So if somebody has migraines, they might have a gallbladder issue?
Mm-hmm. Or it's just the energy pathway, which might not even have a problem with the gallbladder. But then anywhere that pathway goes, it can be affected. So, you know, someone could have a major injury to their big toe and develop epilepsy. Medically, they would never figure it out. But if you see how the pathway goes, it's like, well, you congested this pathway, it's affecting your brain.
Wait a minute, you're saying that if you injure your big toe, it could affect your brain?
Yes, you can, if you injure anywhere along this pathway, this line, green line, it can cause a problem in the head, the eyes, vision. It can affect the heart. It can affect liver, gallbladder.
Piriform muscle.
Yes.
It's the big toe of the left foot, specifically, not the right?
Pathways are on both sides. This only illustrates the left pathway, as to not confuse you.
That's really fascinating because my ex-wife has severe mental illness, and she was trained under the Czechoslovakian gymnastics method, and all of her toes were broken.
Oh.
What about landing on her
A
coccyx?
perfect point.
What about landing on her tailbone, coccyx?
She had 2 serious.
That would do it.
Wow.
Because all energy pathway has to come up there.
Wow.
Which is why I believe, if you're looking at this, I think number 27 is in 3 locations, if not more. I think it's hidden for us. If we were going to draw that with points, you would do that. And then you would connect them. So I think there's points in the 2 hands, top of the head, and the tailbone, which is where the 27th point is. And there's a lot of Hebrew writings from sages that point to these locations. You could even say this is the feet, but the Luz bone, have anyone ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Luz bone, L-U-Z.
Mm-hmm.
The Hebrews say it's the bone that never decomposes, but anyways, they call it the resurrection bone. And from everything I've read, they disagree whether it's at the top of the head or the tailbone. But interesting, both of those locations are connecting points where 6th cycle comes in and connects to 3rd. That's 3rd. So it connects in the top of the head, and it connects in the tailbone, and energy circles up the back and down the front.
Is that something that could be healed?
Oh yeah,
I gotta get your information.
With-
so I can get her with you, really.
with touch
Yeah.
is how we're doing it right now. But there's
Will
more
this system
applications.
work on a patient that is a non-believer?
Yes, but it seems to be slower.
Not as effective.
And in fact, I had someone in my office the other day who is a believer Christian who had a really, really bad life, really bad, I guess you could say, relationship, and she finally left her husband. He was abusive in many ways. She doesn't really talk about it, but you know it's there, you can see it. And as I've been working on her, it's been really unusual things because just touching 2 points, she's gone into these fits where normally when you're working on someone, the body will jerk and shake and realign. But these have been like, she's almost coming off the table.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is weird, this is different. I'm like, I think this is spiritual. And I've seen it before. So very quietly, I will just command it. In the name of Yeshua, in the name of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, you will not manifest, you will leave, and it calms down. So I've actually seen people go through deliverance just by touching points on the body. How do you explain that? I don't know, other than if this creates an environment in the body that is not healthy, and you give them access to your body, the ability to be there, by cleaning up the terrain energetically, it creates a situation where they have to leave. It's just like parasites. Parasites in the body are the same thing as cockroaches. If you have a clean house, you don't have cockroaches. If you have a dirty house, you have cockroaches. There's no such thing as infectious diseases as in the bugs create disease. That's a lie. Toxicity creates disease. So what happens is your body gets toxic, and that attracts the parasites, the fungus, the viruses, the molds, the bacteria, which is why some people have really healthy immune systems and they can be exposed to things and they don't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
And other people pick up everything. Well, it depends on how the terrain of the body is. If the terrain is clean, you won't attract parasites. If it's dirty, you attract the parasites. So the infectious organisms are another symptom that something else is wrong. I think a lot of the demon activity is the same way. The more out of line the person is, the more they're going to be there. When you start correcting that somehow, some way, they have to leave because there's nothing left for them to stay attached to. So when you work on this system, every single point is related to physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So people are releasing years of traumatic events when you work on people. In fact, I see it all the time. The religious folk are the worst because they come in and go, oh, I've dealt with all my emotional stuff. I'm like, no, you haven't. That stuff is stored in your cells so deep you have no clue. And when you get really good, you can see it and you can read it. In fact, depending on how the points are working and functioning, it will actually change the shape of your body. And there's a whole system that we're working on called body reading, or even the face reading, where you can actually see where the shape of the body has changed based on how the pathways are working. Where points get congested, it will twist the body, it will pull in. Where points get congested, the body gets really heavy. You can have an 80-pound girl lay on a bed, and if you go to a place underneath her that's really congested bad, she will feel like she's 500 pounds right there. You can go to another area of her body and you can like lift her off the table. As soon as you get that point uncongested, light as a feather. Because it's the energy that makes you dense when it's congested. And you can feel on top of the person too. You can go place your hands on top of the person and you can get to the point where they're so congested your hands falling asleep. And they're like, what's going on? Until you get it uncongested and then it's like, okay.
Your hand falls asleep?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now we're getting to the wild things.
So like maybe laying on of hands that you think it was on their head, that maybe actually it was on points when they were healing people or
I think so.
helping people. And then another thing about the love bone, I was studying that they found out that it's called the prime streak, and that's how
The prime streak?
how humans are created. It starts out from their coccyx, and everything from the coccyx is created off that point. Your nervous system, circulatory.
Yep.
And if the coccyx messed up, basically you wouldn't be a human. You'd be another animal or some other kind. So it's interesting that concept of the love bone being around the coccyx.
There's a lot of pathways that begin in the coccyx and go through. And of course there's emergency procedures where you can place your hands on the body to stop something from occurring. And all it does is takes light touch. You don't have to rub, you don't have to press. You're just simply touching two locations. Left hand's negative, right hand's positive because of how the primary pathway flows, which creates two different polarities, and you're using your hands as jumper cabers on your body or on someone else's body.
Do you give classes about all this?
Yeah.
To teach other people?
That's what I'm working on my book right now. I'm planning to teach people on how this works. So there's procedures for stopping heart attack, anaphylactic shock, seizures, burns, which Jim can tell you about that one. I'm working on one right now for food poisoning. Yeah, I think that's it. There's all kinds of them. Stop bleeding, extraction to pull things out of the body. So if people want to see a video real quick on stopping bleeding, we can
Yes,
do it.
yes.
But it's a real surgery of someone removing a tumor from a forehead, so it's pretty graphic. Just to warn you.
But it does demonstrate very graphically how powerful this is.
So if we play it,
I've experienced a few of these things. I had a broken rib, and
Yes.
no standing, sitting, laying. There was no position comfortable. So I asked my wife to put her hands, and 20 minutes later, I had no pain. It was still broken. I could feel it, but I could shovel and then
Wow.
bring in wood
Wow.
in the house. So
I might have to fast forward some of this because it's a kind of long video. We don't want to spend it all. So this is the nose. This is the forehead. His eyes are under this. He has a big tumor, and I'm about to cut it out.
Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. It's not gonna let me. My face. Every time I switch back and forth, it stops my cursor. Can I have control of my screen back? Yep. Oh, there we go. Libraries, videos. Oh, that's not it. Now I should have control over the video.
Should try your positive hand or your negative hand.
I was gonna say, do the extraction for whatever's bothering you. On the computer, I mean.
Probably didn't sound.
Battery 90%.
Why would it turn off?
Is that a drum roll?
Dremel.
Drum roll,
Dremel.
just as he's cutting.
So he's cutting.
Normally when making an incision like this, the bleeding would be a little bit more since the face is so very vascular.
Now he's getting ready to get some fish bait. So you can see this is going to be a big hole. So she's applying the procedure right now.
I was gonna say, they started before he started, right?
That area.
She's trying to get his hands away because he keeps sticking that thing in there, pulling it out.
We're just pressing very low. Picture of this thing.
So it's left over right.
So the point is on the forehead. To
No, you can do this anywhere in the body.
Anywhere.
I'll show you
really?
in a minute.
And the more people,
Normally
the
you'd
better.
have a bleeding still continuing, but as you can see, the bleeding
Wow.
is very minimal and the
Yeah.
blood has started to coagulate.
Watch the size of this. As you're about
Yeah.
to see it start closing.
Yeah,
You
this is,
see, it's coagulating and not even oozing out of the wound at this time.
From pressing the forehead?
No,
anywhere.
No, just having your hands on. Like,
I'll show you.
Left hand over the right.
Wow.
I mean, don't
Left
bother
hand.
that. You see
Keep
how it's
watching, because it
coagulating
happens
fast?
quick.
See it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think now we're at a point where we can go ahead and suture without boving.
Really?
So we've,
We would like to have a time where the doctor wouldn't stitch at all,
That's just gonna ask.
gonna apply the key method.
but
area.
Super good.
The king method, that's what they were saying.
Yep.
Okay,
They
we're done.
That was a tumor.
That was a fish bag.
Wasn't very big.
This is just showing blood before and after. Which
Of the guy we just saw?
this is no, this is very bad. You don't want blood to look like that, obviously.
Yeah.
Stuck together, they should be free flowing. Those little things in there moving their parasites, which they tell us we can't have in our blood. And they can't see them because they use bright field, and you only see them in dark field, but they won't use dark field. That's sludge. That's mycoplasmas in the blood. You can see how they invade the cells and make them look like landmines.
Mm-hmm.
Or, not landmines, but those water mines. This should be completely pink, and there should be no big holes. That's what blood's supposed to look like, kind of.
Wow.
So just by putting your hands on the person, it completely changes the blood.
Yes. Specific points.
Mm-hmm.
45 minutes.
So the lymphatic system was able to cleanse it? Is that the function there? Okay.
But you said the more people you have applying, the faster it works.
Oh yeah.
You see how you don't have these big white areas anymore? Now they're kind of gray.
Mm-hmm.
The gray means a healing process. So if it continues, then the whole thing will start turning pink.
Good looking to the slide.
Let's see. Stop bleeding is right here.
So why, in that one surgery, why was that nurse putting her hands on there? And yet nobody else ever does that. I mean, why were they doing it at that particular surgery?
We had permission for her to use the method and to film it.
Wow.
The surgeon actually let her because
So
she
he
was,
normally doesn't do that. He just
No.
said, okay, go ahead and do it this time, and then that's where.
what happened is she learned about TKM and she was using it for a while. And he started seeing such great results. There's another video too where he actually nicked an artery and you didn't know it because it wasn't skirting out. So after him working with her and she was doing this, he didn't have to use cautery a number of times. He kind of became a believer, and then he wanted her in all the surgeries. So we asked if we were allowed to film, and he basically gave permission.
Wow.
But he's still stuck on the idea that you have to stitch it back up. But we believe that if you hold it long enough, it would completely heal up and no scar tissue or anything.
I mean, the way that thing's sucked together is just amazing.
But they won't let you do that yet.
You saying that you could heal it right there at the surgery?
If you had long enough time. And this is all you do, is your right hand is on the body, right on, left hand's over top at 90-degree angles, and you're focused on the palms of your hand. And you can put it anywhere in your body, and it's still going to work. Because of the way the energy circulates in one hand and the other hand are opposite, this creates a spiraling effect that spirals into the body, causing all the fluids to come in. The opposite of that is extraction, which is if you reversed hands. That would pull things out of the body. Shrapnel,
Oh really?
splinters, cysts, get things to pull out toxins. So you don't need any pressure. It's just based on the physics of how the hands are applied. The closer to the location, the faster it's going to be. The more people you have lay hands on someone, the faster it's going to be.
Okay, let's try this on somebody here who wants to.
Go ahead, cut me. Let's see if it works.
Do you remember Ezekiel at Louis Mary's?
That's nothing more.
What?
He was he had a cramp.
True.
Usually it was lasting for 2 hours. Like he was on the couch and watching movie to let the cramp pass.